Thanks for listening to this audio summary of our November 2025 Assured Briefing. I'm Bill Wilt of Assured Research. I'll provide you with a brief overview of the notes in the briefing, and we hope you get value out of this. Our first note has the title, Consider adding debt leverage to the cycle playbook. Now, as most will know, financial managers' go-to play in the cycle playbook, the pricing cycle, is to buy back shares as growth opportunities slow and as the pricing cycle diminishes. We argue in this note that the long-standing 20% debt to capital ratio should probably be reassessed and that there might be room to go higher. Now, in the note, we harnessed interest coverage ratios and debt to capital ratios for all 500 companies in the S&P 500 and compare financials and specifically insurers to other sectors of the S&P 500. Here's what we observe. The interest coverage ratios of insurers are increasing, and they compare at least in line or favorably to many of the other sectors. And while our earnings volatility is still high, that's tempered by insurers having the lowest debt to capital ratio among the 11 other sectors in the S&P 500. Other credit positives include an observation that increasingly insurers count non-regulated cash flows as part of their revenues, something that creditors and credit investors and rating agencies care greatly about. And the reinsurance market has evolved. While it's still cyclical, of course, there are plenty of ways for insurance companies to purchase longer dated forms of reinsurance and to kind of proactively manage their earnings volatility. Add that to the inelastic demand that insurers enjoy, and we think there's a compelling case for at least the consideration of a higher debt to capital ratio. Now, there's one more observation in this note, and we'll end with this credit maxim: raise debt when it's available and inexpensive, not when you need it. So our second note is on the specialty market, and it's titled Valuations and Growth Are Normalizing. We make these observations. First, the structure of the E&S market has changed since 2016. And by the way, we look and focus on the years 2016 to 2024 because that encompasses the era of rapid growth for E&S insurers. The top 10 writers during that time have lost about 18 points of market share since 2016. But the next 15, that cohort of 11 through 25, it's held its share steady at right around 25%. And that means that companies outside the top 25 have been gaining share. And those companies are mainly the E&S specialists that have gained share, and specifically groups with more than half of their premiums drawn from the E&S market. They now control 22% of the market, and that's a tripling of their share when compared to 2016. But as the cycle turns, and it is turning, we expect that the valuations afforded the publicly traded E&S companies will begin to normalize and that their gaps with standard insurers will begin to shrink. Moreover, and again with the cycle turning, we wouldn't expect standard companies to be entirely complacent where E&S business is concerned. Most of them have very robust E&S capabilities, and we'd expect them to stop ceding ground to E&S specialists in the years ahead. Now, the balance of the note is a series of two-page notes, the balance of the briefing, and we're going to continue to incorporate these two-page notes unless readers guide us differently. In the first note, we show that the distribution of loss ratios by accident year for other liability occurrence, we examine those around the 9/11 era hard market, before and after, and then kind of the before and maybe during to slightly after the ongoing hard market. And the observation is that the 9/11 era hard market had a much bigger impact on the shape of the loss ratio distribution for other liability occurrence than the current hard market. Next, we turn to California workers' comp, which is again becoming problematic. But for those worried that California is leading the nation, and we hopefully allay those concerns in this note, the real problem in California is sharply rising defense and cost containment. And that's driven largely by cumulative trauma claims, which are mostly a California phenomenon, at least to the outsized degree that that state is experiencing. Now, turning to Florida, other side of the country, we worked with a firm called Ex Ante to examine legal advertising in the state of Florida. What's interesting is that for property reforms, those really seem to work. You'll recall property reforms were passed in 2022, and what we show is a really notable decline in advertising for hurricane-related claims after those reforms were passed. But as to the liability reforms passed in March of 2023, that didn't slow down legal advertising, although our focus is mostly on mass tort claims. So there may be a little bit of a mismatch there. Still interesting data. And on data, the government isn't producing it, at least as of this recording. But when it does, look for construction revenues to give insights into the direction of commercial premiums, and for retail trade data to give insights into the direction of personal auto driving and premiums. And in the note after the one I just described, we show that revenue at food and drinking establishments, very specifically, is highly correlated with the traffic impressions that we get through our data from Placer.ai. And then those in turn, traffic impressions, at least moderately correlated with auto crashes. And if you didn't know it, there's a lot of publicly traded restaurant companies out there. So that data is available even if the government's not producing the nationwide food and drinking establishment data. And last we go back to back to workers' comp anyway, and look at the relationship of workers' comp premiums and labor market data going back to 1973. And the bottom line is there aren't really any surprises that we could find. Workers' comp premiums are pro-cyclical, which means they grow when the labor market is strong and they shrink when it's not. But to be helpful, if we had to pick one variable to watch that might not be on your radar screen, we'd suggest watching the change in the labor participation rate, which seems to give a bit stronger signal than some other more traditional measures of employment as to the direction of workers' comp premium changes. So that's it. I hope you found value in this audio briefing and that you find time to at least thumb through the briefing. Keep in mind that your colleagues, if they're not on our distribution list, can join. Just send them to the contact page at our website. Thanks very much and hope you have a great day.